This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to have Nir Levy, Vice President of Operations at Final Frontier Manufacturing, and my friend. We've known a little while. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Oh, well, you're a fascinating person. And the more I've talked to you, the more I go, damn, that guy really, I can totally understand why you are the Vice President of Operations. What exactly that means, we're going to delve into that a little more. But first, I want you to just give a quick overview of your company and what it means to be Vice President of Operations. Then we're going to get a little your story and delve a little deeper.
Sure, yeah. So Final Frontier Manufacturing, we're a CNC manufacturing company in the greater Denver area in Arvada. And we make parts for various applications, but our primary focus is aerospace or aero defense, depends on how we look at it. What I find fascinating about our company is like a few things that I really like about the company that I've been now for a few months is, first of all, the team. Got some exceptional machinists, exceptional engineers. Really enjoy working with them. Good people on top of them being also top professionals. We take a lot, and we can talk about that in a moment, and take a lot of pride in the way we go about things, how we see things slightly differently than maybe some of our competitors, and the results that we've seen through that. Vice President of Operations. Every CNC shop is an operation, and every operation needs someone who takes all the pieces, some who are a bit more professional, some a bit more administrative, and connects them into one operation that goes in the same direction. And essentially that is the role. How do we ensure that the operation goes in the same direction, is smart about priorities, has execution discipline, has the foresight to improve those as we go. And you add to that a flavor of like core operational principles, things that we learn as we go into operations, Kaizens, 5S, Six Sigma, all those things, kind of adding that layer to an operation that's already existing while leading a team. That is the core responsibility of the role.
All right. Well, look, just a little backstory. As many people know, I live in Chicago, and I met Nir because his son was in my daycare class in Chicago, and my son's daycare class, actually. And we got to know each other. And then, unfortunately, after only a few months, Nir got this great gig in Denver and just picked up and went. So there must have been a good reason why they had him just leave Chicago and come right out. So he's got a very interesting story. First of all, he's from Israel. And all I knew before, he was from Israel. He worked for Amazon for a while, doing a lot of interesting management things. And, what struck me about you, Nir, was you kept asking me about my work. And so what are your processes? How are you guys organized? And I'm just like, holy shit, I'm totally disorganized. Like I need this guy here because when I found out you worked for Amazon, I went, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. First though, tell me, you grew up in Israel, and I guess we'll skip to the Army. It seems like the Army is a really significant place for people to find themselves, to learn what they're good at, and perhaps to learn, organization skills like, what you have. So tell me a little about that. what you learned being in the army. Well, so in Israel, people go into the army when they're 18, right?
When the company, such as Graf Pinkert, knows both the buyer and the seller, it was a fit, a great, great fit. And that made all the difference in the world because they knew our desires and they knew the company purchasing KMY. They knew that they were looking and they put the two together just perfectly. You've been in the business all these years, know and have a great wealth of knowledge of your customers. And that was very, very helpful.
Yeah, so you start the army mandatory conscription for men and women at the age of 18, right out of high school. And the army kind of assigns you to a certain role or a certain unit at a certain place based on a multitude of metrics that it does glean as it does test before you even enlist. And at that point, you start the training or the process or the role that you've been assigned to. And it's essentially merit-based for the most part. If you're very good at what you do, you will have an opportunity to go quicker in the ranks or more opportunities to get into certain units or certain roles. And as it happens, a few months into my tenure as a regular private and then corporal, at the time I was given the opportunity to try to pass the test for officers course and officers training. And one thing led to another, and I found myself within a year and a half into my service as a commanding officer.
At 19.
19, yeah. 19. And that's not actually that uncommon in Israel. You have people that do that. It's a bit on the younger side, but not that much.
So what do you have to do as an operations officer, or what were you doing as an as a commander in the Army?
It really depends on the role. So my first role, I was actually a mechanic in the Navy SEALs unit. So there's a frontline mechanic, the people that join the Navy SEALs in their operations and helps fix their crafts at whatever environment they're in. So that was my first role. The second role was a bit more operational in nature. I was the lieutenant that was in charge of a certain staffing situation for border patrols, maritime border controls over a certain geography, over a certain border, one that has been in the news rather recently.
Lebanon?
No, more the Gaza maritime border. So there are certain military units that cover that border, including maritime, aviation, and obviously Army border. And my job was at the time rather small. I was a young officer, but I contributed to ensuring that the staffing for that is always ongoing and always covered. If you don't have the coverage, that kind of creates some problems for defense coverage. And there's multitude of ways that you go about getting that. In my second role, I was in charge of the entire HR and some parts of the logistics for a full unit actually in the Red Sea arena. So that is a 500 soldier unit that requires certain management from the headquarters side of things. So a lot of operation, a lot of organization to make sure that everything ticks and all the missions go the way they should be going. So it's more of a planning and a certain level of execution rather than only execution or only planning.
Do you feel like, I feel like in that situation, and obviously I've never experienced anything like that, but I would think that would make one hyper focused. I mean, number one, you have the discipline around you, but just knowing that all this stuff is like life or death. Does it just give you like a seriousness and a focus that is really like no other?
I would, it's an interesting question. I would say that it's more around the lines of at a very impressionable age, you see what a world-class operation looks like. Yeah, when we can talk all day long whether it's right or wrong, and I'm sure there's smarter people than me that can talk about that. But regardless of that, I think that no one can really refute that the IDF is a world-class operation. And seeing what a world-class operation looks in the weeds, and the inner side of it, at a very impressionable age, starts to form really strong habits. And those habits lend themselves very well to any operation, but also to any professional. Time management, self-management, compartmentalization of complex problems, and then solving those compartments one by one. So those are things that they are sometimes very difficult to learn. Grit, by the way, very difficult to learn outside of certain environments.
And that goes for everybody in the Army, not just the organizer. I'm sure that to some extent.
Yes, I would say that could go to almost everybody. There's always going to be someone who doesn't apply themselves to whatever organization they're in, some people who over-apply themselves. But as a general statement, yes, the Army is a really good environment for that. Absolutely.
After that, when you've gone into the private sector, I mean, it sounds like you're at a great company right now, but do you feel like there's a unity that's like totally unique on another level, that is, been something to emulate, to inspire you for later, as far as an organization, as far as having yourself together?
Yes. I think that I learned a lot of lessons in the military at a very young age. I've been a commander since I was 19 years old, / manager. Commanding in the military, especially in a mandatory service, really lends itself well to management. It's a bit different than I would assume it's a bit different from a mandatory military to a professional military, in the sense of like, you don't have a lot of, I'm thinking about like soft levers that you could use in the professional sense that you could use then later on as a manager in a job. So like when you manage someone and you work on their performance, you assume for the most part that they want to be in that place and they signed up for this job, signed up for this role. Same goes to professional military. You're being paid and you're signed in for this. Of course, there's other factors. People are driven by the mission and they see it as a calling. I see all that. In a mandatory service, it's not always the case. A lot of people are very driven naturally. Everyone in Israel, I would say, understands the importance of the military for their own self-defense, but not everyone is signed up for doing this for essentially mandatory. You can say that.
Yeah, they're forced into it. So you've got to deal with that. Even though they know it's really important, at the same time, like it's not people's first choice of where to be necessarily.
Yeah. For some it is, for some it isn't.
When you went in there, how did you feel? Did you feel like, were you excited or scared or a whole bunch of things?
I'm trying to remember how I felt going into it. I think I acknowledged that it's going to happen at a younger age already. I knew it was going to happen, so I thought to myself, if it is already happening, why not make the most out of it and embrace it? Try to find pockets of enjoyment. Try to see how it also helps you become a better person, hopefully a better, friend, family member, teammate, citizen, professional.
I think that in our country, it would be great if we had some sort of civil service. It doesn't have to be like military necessarily, but I just feel like there's such a divide in our country, amongst different places, different socioeconomic classes. Do you feel like in Israel look, I know Israelis, and I've heard things that, it's not quite as united as people might make it seem. There's still divisions of people are from everywhere, but would you say that the Army provides a certain unity?
For certain sectors of the population, yes. But there still is a political divide in Israel, not that dissimilar of what we're seeing in America. Like there is right versus left, or some type of variation of that. And they staunchly oppose each other.
Yeah.
Not that dissimilar to what we're seeing in the United States currently.
That's interesting. Okay. So we could talk about this a long time, but I know we don't have forever. Eventually, you came to the United States and you worked at Amazon. Did you do some other stuff in Israel before you got over to Amazon?
Yes, so I did my undergrad in Israel, and then I went to management consulting. And I think that is where I learned operations from a more analytical slash financial standpoint. Really gave me a good understanding, of a natural next step after the military service, where I saw operations like hands-on a bit, different type of operation, but still an operation in the military. The next step was learning operations from a more analytical slash financial standpoint. And I did that at Strategy End, which used to be called Booz and Company, an American firm owned by PwC, that does a lot of management consulting all over, including in the United States, Europe. A great experience. I had some great teammates there. Some of them are still my friends to this day. And from there on, my next natural progression was to do an MBA. I was fortunate enough to get into U Chicago Booth, and that was essentially my ticket into the United States.
I didn't realize you went to UFC. Wow, nice. Um, okay. So Amazon, you worked at Amazon. To me, you hear all kinds of things. You hear about the people working there, that it's the conditions, that you hear about the tech people. There's a lot of burnout. You hear, I don't know. I had never met anybody who actually was in management at Amazon before I met you. You went through a lot of different things there. What do you think is unique about what they teach you in Amazon as far as manufacturing, and then you worked at a fulfillment? I mean, to me, it sounds like that was a really big deal that led you to where you are today. Would you say?
Yeah, for sure. So I've seen operations from multiple angles. Like I said, so I had a bit in the military. So operations from the more planning side of it. In Booth, I learned, I'm still in touch with one of my operations professors, learning more from an academic standpoint, Lean, Six Sigma, 5S, Kaizens. The next natural progression for me was to find a hands-on experience in a core operation. And as it happens, Amazon came with a fantastic offer right out actually during my MBA. And the offer was this Pathways program, which they say, okay, we're going to put you in through the hoops, and you're going to learn how to be a manager in a initially warehousing or fulfillment facility. And I took it on, and after a few different roles and promotions, I found myself managing a full manufacturing facility for Amazon. Not many people know, but also Amazon also manufactures a lot.
Right. You don't think about that. You just think about, so fulfillment is like packing boxes.
In general, yes.
Okay.
There's a bit more to that, but yeah, you can put there.
Right. But it's a big deal. You have, I mean, how many people are in like a fulfillment place?
It varies by the site, but there are sites that can go up to 5,000 people even. In one facility, yeah.
So, I mean,
Yep, those are big sites.
that's incredible. And then when you were doing manufacturing, you were manufacturing books, and what else were you manufacturing? Or is that mainly what you were doing?
My site, I manufactured books, and sounds like books is somewhat simple, but books can vary by any means. Like you have different types of paper, different types of laminate, different types of covers, different types of ink, toner, different cuts. So what was special about book manufacturing was that Amazon did it on demand. I didn't have any book inventory. If you ordered a book now on Amazon, that book would be ready. 95% of those books that you order would be ready to ship within 4 hours from the moment you clicked on it.
That's unbelievable.
That's a world-class operation right there.
So if you can do that, then you can go to a machining company. It makes it look like kid stuff, probably.
I mean, they're very different in many ways, but there are some things that lend themselves really well from manufacturing, especially on-demand manufacturing, to what we do in machine shops. All of the machine shops are on demand. How many of the machine shops that you know actually have parts in inventory? Most of them have stock in inventory. which is not the same as having parts in inventory. And that is kind of how the on-demand factor lends itself rather well to CNC.
That makes sense, because I mean, we sell machines to a lot of high production shops that may have inventory, but I also know of shops that, yeah, they do very low volume stuff. And I mean, how much do the parts that you sell cost sometimes? You had
that varies.
Hold up the part you had, because it was really neat.
Yeah, so it varies, and so we have this part. This is a gear housing for a rocket. So this sits on the top of the rocket engine, and you can just see how that moves.
Are you talking about like a rocket that would be fired by SpaceX, or like a missile weapon rocket, or you can't tell me, or else you'd have to kill me.
I'm not sure we want to go there, but I will say that this part could easily find itself, whether through a prototype or through a test or through an actual launch in the atmosphere.
Okay, and how much does that cost?
They really vary. It depends on the part themselves. There's some parts that are very small and rather simple from an engineering and from a spindle standpoint. They could be even double or low triple digits. But parts that are a bit more complex, that require a lot of engineering, and kind of that is what we're also very proud of at Found Frontier. We will take the most complex parts you can think of, and we'll make sure that those happen as a true partnership. But that requires significant resources sometimes, adjustments to the program, true partnership with our partners on how to manufacture this, maybe in a slightly better way or slightly better tolerance, or maybe even sometimes a lower tolerance that results in a higher cost saving that will be more applicable for the customer if that is what they're looking for. And those parts could go up to even 5 digits, depends on the part.
What did you learn the most from Amazon? What is like your biggest takeaway? I mean, it sounds so intense. It sounds like I can totally understand why somebody would want to hire somebody that experienced managing at Amazon. I never really had known anybody or thought about it that much. Yeah, what are some of the main things you've learned from that you're now taking to this new job?
I wouldn't be able to put my finger on a single thing that I've learned. There's so many things. You can start by the basics of like operational excellence, hands-on. Like you hear about operational excellence, you hear about Toyota or whatnot, and you learn about them in school, or if you're into it, and you see videos online, you see all that stuff. But actually experiencing what it looks like from a world-class operation.
Can you just, I know all of those terms. A lot of people have heard of them, but give the nitty-gritty, of the Toyota and the Six Sigma, and like I know you were talking about just in time. I think that has something to do with it. The fundamentals of these things. Give like an actual concrete example.
So let's talk about just in time, for example. So Amazon has their own metric that is essentially how many packages or units were delivered on the promised time to the customer or sooner. And the threshold for that is very, very tight. Essentially, for every 1,000 units that you send out, there's a handful of units that you can miss without raising any questions. And if you miss more than that and you send them a bit later, there will be some scrutiny and a good practice in learning lessons on how to do that better next time. So that would be falling under just on time or continuous improvement.
So what percentage are we talking? Like out of how many you can mess up?
99.65 or better.
99.65.
That is a high number. And
that's for like things being packed on time or books being done right, or
arriving to the customer on time. And you can extrapolate that to units that you pack or units that you manufacture. It's the same.
I might be part of that 0.45%.
0.35.
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit. They do an amazing job. It is a magical thing, but going to the wrong address, I mean, it may not always be their fault. You've lived in Chicago, sometimes people like just take your stuff before you can get it.
My experience in Chicago was I really can't remember a single unit that I bought from Amazon that came late. I'm sure there were. I just can't remember one.
Well, they tell you when it's coming late, but
So yeah, I can't remember a unit that I needed. And here's something that if you going back to your question about what I learned from Amazon, customer obsession is one of their leadership principles. At Amazon, we treated every package and every unit as if it was a Christmas present or a birthday present. They're not worth a lot the day after. Even if it wasn't even close to Christmas, we would still take that intensity and tenacity to get a package on time for the customer. And all of our processes were also, for the most part, designed or engineered from the customer backwards. Okay, so assuming that the customer wants this unit at this certain moment in time, how do you reverse engineer the entire process to fit that? And then you go process by process and find those pockets of continuous improvements, or 5S's, to make it safer for your employees, but also better for your customer.
And so you had an extensive training period at Amazon before you started doing that, or were they just like, he went to booth, he's got an army, we can tell he's awesome?
I mean, even if you have a great background, it doesn't still mean that you're going to hit the ground running. Luckily for me, I had a really good manager at the time and some really good partners that helped me kind of find my way. I had some other people from other sides, from my personal connections, that kind of mentored me through it, and it was a great time. But as far as training, the training was just shadowing someone for a certain amount of time and learning things hands-on. Sometimes you'd think there would be a structured training. There is a program that expects you to hit certain road marks and milestones and deliverables, and a certain level of performance. But the training itself wasn't unique to that program. It was just shadowing someone and learning from a very good partner at the time.
Okay. Give me, like, in your today and maybe yesterday, okay, doing what you do at your company. Like, I have a sort of idea, you're making things go smoothly, you're making things go on time, you're making things organized, but like, I don't know, tell me what exactly you do on a regular basis and what you're trying to improve upon. And
so there's multiple layers to it. I think that for every team, the first layer would be to build or reinforce a very, very strong team. So kind of as I came into this role, kind of assessing the team, seeing where we have some strengths and trying to reinforce them and preserve them, seeing when there's some opportunity and trying to see how we can support those areas of opportunity, what barriers we can remove, what support can we add to help that person, what are some other things along the line that aren't allowing that individual to unleash their potential. Sometimes just making a small shift could kind of open someone up to a really good opportunity or to a really good level of performance. Whether it's training or anything, could be a multitude of things. So that was and still is one of my first challenges. We have a very strong team, like I said earlier, really, really exceptional team. Machinists
they just know what they're doing. They're organized. They have good practices.
I've been kind of learning CNC like on paper, going through the CNC Titans videos, the Haas certificates. And one of my first indications of certain machines that we had is I went through the video of how to set up a machine, and then I shadowed a setup with a machinist. And he went, and it was great to see. He went step by step, exactly like they showed in the video. And I'm sure he doesn't watch Haas videos every day. He just knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it for at least 7 years now. And he just came in, showed it, super patient, explaining everything. And sure enough, the execution was right. The program was already good, but the setup was just as important at the time. Part went in, passed first article inspection, passed the entire production. you move on to the next part. And that was a really good sign for me for that machine specifically. And then I've kind of tried to challenge them in certain angles and verify that with some research or from other angles. And everything I've seen from our machines and from our programmers has been exceptional.
You came into a nice situation. I'm sure you're going to like up their game, but you've already like got, it's like going to like a really good basketball team to coach versus like coaching a bunch of coming into a mess and then needing to, you know, to really whip it into shape.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, there are always opportunities, and there is opportunity with us. And one of the things, like I said, the basic premise of what I'm doing is, first of all, try to kind of establish a very, very strong team and then go into some of the lessons learned from Amazon. Like, for example, backlog management, scheduling. Those are things that Amazon is very good at. When I was at Amazon, we knew the backlog several weeks out, if not more, sometimes, and we could always prepare for the holiday season months ahead of time with a decent level of confidence of what demand is going to look like. Prioritization and scheduling was very, very accurate over there. But with complex parts and parts of the manufacturing is not a linear process like it is for a book or for a simple part, that adds different layers of complexity. So scheduling is quite a challenge. When do you go to up one, up two, outside processing, the timing of that, timing of raw materials coming in. Those are all difficult problems to solve by their own right. But having solved similar problems with Amazon at a certain level of success, what we're trying to do right here is to apply that excellence into our operation. So you're better on keeping the spindles running, better on ensuring the quality stays consistent, ensuring that you have enough reserves in your timeline so you don't come late on a customer order.
What do you see? I mean, maybe you can't really answer this. Maybe you haven't really observed that many places that don't have their self together. But what do you think the weaknesses are of a lot of places?
I think there's 4 things that I'm actually very proud of this company, that we are not really dealing with those 4 things. But I've kind of been through a few shops and I've been in and around manufacturing for several years now. And what I'm seeing is, like, first and foremost, the team, people first, right? You always need to have a very strong team to build around you. And if you don't have a really strong team, then it makes things somewhat difficult to drive a world-class operation, whether it's a CNC shop or whatever other operation you can think of. A lot of things that we meet in our daily lives are operations, and how many of them have a strong team and how many of them do deliver excellence on a consistent basis. So the team is like the bedrock and the foundation of that.
Do you think it's easier to get a team to build them from, I mean, it's time consuming, but to train them the way you want and build them from the ground up, or to go and, you know, hire some top-notch people because you have the resources and, you know, I mean, it's a challenge either way.
It is a challenge either way. And I would say if it's a small team, you would want to answer that question through the individuals, and that then it becomes a case by case. Depends on who the individuals are. You have excellent people coming out of college. You have excellent people that come out of high school, and you have excellent people that come out of 20, 30 years of experience from somewhere else. And then you have the exact opposite of that in every one of these levels. So as long as you have a small team, it's a case by case and it's driven by the individuals. And I would think that a wise manager knows to either identify that or to work with individuals to set them up for success. So the team is at the core of everything. The second thing is I said 4 things. Second thing is the operational excellence. So a lot of people have a good team, have a good understanding of the machine, but are they invested in the operation itself? Think about a basketball team or a soccer team or an orchestra. Have a lot of good individuals, but you always need someone who kind of gets them together on one path.
The glue person, The captain.
The captain, the glue person. It could be, there's a lot of variations of that. But it's not only the person itself, it's also the plan behind it. You can have a great person that's very charismatic or a natural leader, but you also need to have the know-how on how to drive a good operation. And that requires a certain level of knowledge and a certain level of a certain personality. And then there's like two more things that I think that I'm seeing in other shops that I'm not seeing in other shops that I am seeing at Final Frontier, which makes me very proud and kind of one of the reasons I came here. Third thing is AI adoption. What I've seen is a lot of shops right now are somewhat reluctant to adopt AI tools, deeply adopt AI tools.
Why? Because of security, because of fear of being replaced, because lack of knowledge. Why do you think that is the difference?
If I had to put my finger on one thing, it's more of everything until now worked rather well. Why change it? People are naturally reluctant to change, but it's just a matter of time before someone adopts AI very well, and I think that we're right at the forefront of that. We invest a lot in AI applications and in AI adjustments and adoption to what we do, and I think that we're in a really good place. And
in what way? In programming the machines, in setting up systems, analyzing things?
In every single one of those. That's the thing. So our owners are really, really forward-looking when it comes to AI. And at Final Frontier, we virtually have as many tokens as you need. There's never going to be a shortage of tokens if you need to build a good tool with AI.
Tokens meaning, like, for the people who don't know,
tokens is essentially the currency of computing power that you get from the AI agent. The more you have, the better and the smarter and the quicker it can run for you. So our owners are really forward-looking in that sense, and they give us virtually an unlimited amount of computing power if you decide to go and develop things through AI. And you can take it from the obvious ones would be programming, right? Or at least a section of the programming. You talk about toolpaths instead, or just parts of the programming that are not as geometry is not too difficult. You could kind of rely on an AI agent there. Maybe the more advanced things need a bit more time, but just getting ready for that, when that comes in. Quality programs, quality management systems. If you'd go to a lot of shops, they might have an idea of where they sit with their non-conformances, but there's levels to that. And AI is a very powerful tool, and make sure that you manage that. You have a good data that you can glean on and learn the lessons to then go back. We spoke about continuous improvements, improve the process, and taking that to scheduling. Scheduling is a big problem that will require in the future. It also already requires right now, honestly.
I mean, you probably already have good scheduling, but it's also just a matter of making it so it takes less effort, right?
So we have good scheduling right now, but I believe that with the help of AI, what took you 5 years ago, a group of PhDs with a certain amount of knowledge in programming, you can now do with one person who actually knows conceptually what it looks like, and has the AI agent to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the random nature and the random, they call it stochastic nature of some of the components in scheduling.
Are you talking about like an ERP?
You can see scheduling systems inside an ERP for sure. But what we're trying to build right now is actually a scheduling system that is unique to us and to what we deliver, that learns what it took for us in past works that were very similar time. Like, for example, if op1 is very similar to 5 other op1s that we had for the same alloy in the past 18 months, your scheduling system would be able to estimate how long op1 is going to take you, and then assign it on a certain day to a certain machine in a way that is commensurate to the priority or to the due date. And that is a different level than any scheduling I've seen in a machine shop. It's a completely different level.
And you're using agents. You're not just using large language models. You're using like AI that's actually doing stuff.
Yes. So that is very unique to Final Frontier, and we take in to everything. Our hiring processes are driven by that. Our, like I said, programming, scheduling, quality management is driven by AI, and essentially the plan is to get it in as many ways that it makes sense. And I think that Final Frontier is one of the first adopters of that in this space.
And it sounds like that's one of the things you're doing is figuring out how to implement it. What are you doing? Like, I mean, like any of the big ones? Are you using Anthropic, Claude, or ChatGPT, or are you using like more specific things? Or
Yeah, we're using one of the big ones. We use what we perceive to be the most advanced one to our needs, and it is one of the big ones.
you can't tell me.
We use that, and we also use that in a very specific manner.
We use that one, yeah.
We use one of them and in a very specific manner that is commensurate to the the cybersecurity safety component of that. So there are limitations there because above everything, we need to make sure that we protect the data security of everything we have. That is a non-negotiable as far as we see it. But whenever it makes sense and it is applicable from a CMMC perspective and other regulations and cybersecurity defense perspective, that's where we apply that, and I think we do it to great effect. And it's just the beginning. Like some of the tools are not fully ready for everything, but that will be solved in the near future, and we're ready for that to happen.
Is there something you're waiting for that's like, ooh, I can't wait until it can do this one thing?
There's a lot of those. One thing that sticks to mind would be what I said about scheduling. Like taking the scheduling, it's in a good level right now, and we have our own system that is automated to an extent. But taking that to the next level would be very, very fascinating at a personal level, but also I think it would improve our operation greatly. And you asked me earlier about the company, what are the things that differentiate us. I think there's like two more things that I haven't mentioned yet. One is that a lot of times I see in shops that they sell spindle hours, which is a great way of quoting things.
They sell what?
They quote through spindle hours.
Spindle hours.
Yeah. I think that sometimes we see ourselves a bit different in the sense of like we're problem-solving partners. We work on prototypes of things that have never been built before. And our engineering team is very robust, and we work very closely with the counterparts, with our customers' engineering team. That sometimes are startups or smaller companies that maybe need that knowledge of like, okay, this part has been designed and it's a beautiful part, it's amazing. But have you thought about this angle that will make it more designed better for manufacturing, DFM? If you change this feature, you might get a quicker cycle time, or you might get a better tolerance or a better price per unit. So working with our customers on solving those problems is something that we're really excited about. And essentially, they have a difficult part that they need someone to make, and we're here to support them. And the last one is like the Pathways program that we have built here at Final Frontier. We spoke about like the team and the importance of building a team, and what we've identified is there is a great hunger among manufacturing engineer and machine engineer bachelors coming out of college for work in CNC shops. But historically, it hasn't been transferred really well from college to a machine shop. So we've created this structured program that you get people from certain schools that are aligned with our mission, with what we're looking for as far as background, builders rather than anything else. And we place them in this robust training program of 12 weeks, at the end of which they are expected to be at an intermediate level of making parts both in mill and in lathe from cradle to grave, from programming through proving out and including the running a CMM on the part and passing the first article inspection.
And there's some people who are just aces and they can do it.
There's a lot of people coming out of college that are exactly like that. And the average age of a machinist is ever growing, and the pool of talent is unfortunately getting smaller and smaller. So we have to be creative in some ways, and we found this angle, and we think it's great not only for our company, but I would hope other companies adopt it, and that would be great for U.S. manufacturing in general. We can get some great talent into this manufacturing. We need a lot of good people in this space.
Sure.
And we're really, really proud of it. We just launched our first cohort a couple of weeks ago, and it's been a great success so far.
Interesting. All right, just a couple quick questions. Not necessarily easy ones, but as you know, I'm very into serendipity. Tell me a time, and it can be anything, where serendipity played a part, where luck played a part. You made your own luck in something just fell into place. It could be personal, it could be professional.
Yeah, meeting my wife for sure is one of the biggest things in my life. So I actually met my wife in somewhere between elementary school to kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we both were we lived in London at the time with our families. Both our parents had different jobs, temporary relocations to London. Us both being Jewish people, we went to the same Jewish school, and
Interesting.
we just knew each other back then. I don't think she remembers, but I remember her. Her parents remembered us, and I remembered her. I was like 10 months older than her, so maybe something with that made me remember her. But clearly, I wasn't that.
So she didn't remember you, even though you were in the same school.
I clearly wasn't striking enough for her to remember me all these years, but I remembered her.
From what age?
I was like 6 years old. She was 5 years old. Yeah, and she was 5. And we didn't stay in touch afterwards, but I remembered her all these years. Like as someone loyal, I remember that pretty girl that I had in my class a million years ago.
I mean, yeah, you're 5 and 6. I mean, yeah.
I just remembered her. I just remember her because we were kind of friends at the time. And 20 years later, we both live in Tel Aviv, Israel, both bachelors at the time. And I just saw her on Facebook this one day, and I'm like, oh wow, I think that's the same girl that I had in kindergarten, and I messaged her, and the rest is history.
So you just recognized her name, you recognized how she looked, both?
I remembered her name, not her family name, her last name. And I asked my mother, like, do you remember that family? Because it was a close group there, from parents from the same school. And she remembered the family name, the last name. And it was the same last name. So I remembered the first name. My mother remembered the last name. I'm like, yeah, and it kind of looks like her, but in a grown-up version.
But you just thought, oh, this will be fun. You thought she was attractive, but then you just thought, oh, well, this is an entree. I know her.
Yeah.
Then you had a conversation on Facebook, and you're like, oh, I'm in Tel Aviv. You're in Tel Aviv. Why don't we get coffee?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a great story. One or two other questions. I was on my walk this morning, and I suddenly thought of this. So give me a couple things, 1 to 3 things that give you real joy, that just make you happy. And I mean, I hope, probably family is one of them, being with them. Maybe it's not your top 3. Give me a couple that come to mind, just that you're just like, God, I am so happy when I am doing this, or when I am in this place.
Family, for sure. For sure, number one. It's not even a contest. My wife, my kids, my parents, my brother and his family.
Just
being with them, talking with them, having a good time together, going to holidays with them together. That gives me, my wife's family as well, of course. Being with them gives me a lot of joy. That is a single special one. So the other 2 are like, I get a lot of joy in planning things and executing on them, and just naturally. I know it sounds weird, but just naturally.
You're going back to what you do, which is great. If that's like, your DNA, and like what gives you pleasure is what you do.
It's exactly that. Like I enjoy like small things, and they lend themselves actually well to operations.
Like what?
Like organizing my pantry. Like my pantry is very organized. and that's just like part of like the things that I like.